Jacob was tired, not the kind of tired a good night's sleep could fix, but a deep, soul-crushing weariness. It had been weeks since he lost his job, and the bills were piling up faster than he could count. His once bright and hopeful apartment now felt like a cage, trapping him in his despair. Every evening, he would sit in the corner of the dimly lit room, staring at the peeling wallpaper, feeling the weight of his circumstances pressing down on him. His thoughts were like storm clouds, swirling with anger, frustration, and a creeping sense of hopelessness. "Why me, Lord? Why does everything fall apart?" he muttered under his breath, though no one was there to hear. The silence of the room was deafening. It echoed his loneliness, his isolation. For years, Jacob had drifted away from his faith, thinking he could manage life on his own. But now, faced with his darkest hour, he felt utterly powerless. Then out of nowhere, a memory came to him, a faint but comforting voice from his childhood. His mother, sitting by his bedside, her warm hands folded in prayer. "Jacob, never be afraid to talk to God. He listens, even when you feel no one else does." The memory sparked something inside him, a flicker of warmth in the cold emptiness of his heart. Could he dare to reach out? Would God even listen after all these years? Jacob knelt on the worn carpet of his living room. His heart was heavy, his voice shaky. It wasn't a formal prayer, but a cry from the depths of his soul. "God, I don't even know what to say, but I need help, please." His words hung in the air, unanswered. Yet, as he remained there, kneeling in silence, he felt a strange calm. Not a solution to his problems, but a sense of release, as if his burdens had been shared. The days that followed were not easy. Jacob still faced rejection emails, overdue notices, and sleepless nights. But something had shifted. Every morning and every evening he prayed. Sometimes his words were messy, sometimes he had no words at all. But he kept reaching out, holding onto a fragile thread of hope. Jacob started taking walks. At first, it was simply to escape the oppressive atmosphere of his apartment. But slowly, the walks began to feel like a form of therapy. The world outside was alive with sights and sounds he had forgotten: chirping birds, rustling leaves, distant laughter of children playing in the park. One evening, he sat on a park bench, watching the sunset paint the sky in hues of gold and crimson. An elderly man sat down beside him, sighing deeply. Jacob glanced at him, sensing a kindred spirit of weariness. "Long day?" Jacob asked gently. The old man nodded, his eyes fixed on the fading light. "Lost my wife 2 months ago," he murmured, 53 years together. "Now it's just me and this empty house." Jacob felt a pang of empathy. He didn't know what to say, but he listened. And as the man spoke, sharing memories and regrets, Jacob realized that sometimes just being present was enough. When the man finally rose to leave, he gave Jacob a small, grateful smile. "Thank you for listening," he said. "It's been a while since I could talk to anyone." Jacob watched him go, feeling a deep sense of connection, a reminder that even in his own struggles, others carried burdens just as heavy. The following weekend, he signed up to help organize a community meal for those in need. The event was modest but filled with warmth. People laughed, shared stories, and for a few hours forgot about their troubles. Jacob found himself chopping vegetables alongside a woman named Linda, who had lost her business during the pandemic. She spoke of her fears and doubts, and Jacob listened intently, sharing his own journey in return. As the evening wrapped up, Linda looked at him with tears in her eyes. "You know, I almost didn't come tonight," she confessed. "I was too ashamed, but hearing your story, it gave me hope." Those words struck a chord deep within Jacob. Hope, that's what it was all about. Not just finding his own light, but sharing it so others could see through their darkness. Jacob's faith grew deeper with every small act of kindness. The more he gave, the more his soul healed. He found himself seeking not just answers from God, but guidance on how to be a light for others. One evening, he organized a small prayer group at the shelter. At first, Just a few people joined, but over time, more gathered. They shared their burdens, prayed together, and found comfort in each other's company. Jacob's life had become a testimony, not just of overcoming hardship, but of embracing faith as a means to lift others. He had become a vessel of hope, a reflection of God's love through simple, heartfelt actions. Months passed, and the shelter became a place of restoration. People began to call it the House of Hope. Jacob's journey didn't end there. He found himself speaking at local gatherings, sharing his story with anyone who needed encouragement. His words weren't always perfect, but they were honest, and they resonated. One night, as Jacob prepared to leave the shelter, he looked at the flickering light above the entrance and smiled. It wasn't perfect, just like life, but it was enough to keep the darkness at bay. He whispered a prayer, not for himself this time, but for everyone who would walk through those doors. Thank you, Lord, for using my brokenness to heal others, for turning my darkness into light. Help me to keep sharing it. As he walked home, his heart felt full of gratitude, full of peace, full of purpose. Jacob had learned that light wasn't just something you find, it's something you become. And he knew deep in his soul that the journey was far from over. But now he was no longer afraid, because he had found his purpose, to be a light in the lives of those who still wandered through the darkness. Because the light within him was meant to shine.